Hey YouTube, hey Ram truck owners, how are y'all doing? Hey, this video is specific to the Cummins turbodiesel Rams. No offense to you gas guys, you got a great truck too, but if you've got the Cummins 5.9 in either the first gen through the later trucks, excepting the ones that came with a factory fluid-filled damper, they're not going to have this issue. But basically, the rubber and metal vibration dampers here, some people call them a harmonic balancer. That's not really correct terminology. It'd be a harmonic vibration damper. It's a weighted flywheel-like that bolts to the front of your crankshaft on all the Cummins engines, and the engines had different ones. This one is specific to the 94 to 98 12 valve, what we call the early second gen trucks. It's a different one for the 24 valve trucks, a different one for the earlier first gen Rams that had the same engine, very similar damper, a little different. So I'll put all the part numbers for the various year Rams for this part, the Cummins part number that'll help you search it out, whatever your truck may need. But here's the one that went bad. So I'm driving the other day and I sensed something's wrong. A little mechanical angel of the Lord told me, lift your hood and look, hop up and then look down. And I'm not kidding, because I didn't know this was going bad. I literally didn't until last Friday, right on the holiday weekend eve. I had a belt chirp that I couldn't trace down, and that was my main symptom. I guess I was noticing some engine roughness as well, and you can see why. This is the inner hub that bolts to the crankshaft, and there's a rubber piece that goes in between these two parts, and you can see it clearly just delaminating, coming apart. I'm about, I think it's 40% missing from there to there, so that's a long ways. And here it's perfect. That's a brand new one, of course, and it's about a $200 part. And this is the stock Cummins part. There are some fluid dampened ones that are a $500 part. I was more in a mood for a $200 fix than a $500 fix. The fluid dampening one sounds great, but the stock one worked really well for 22 years. That part has 22 years, 215,000 miles. I did some quick math, and I think it revolved or rotated around 1/3 of a billion times. I measured it to be 388 million revolutions. So I think it's done its duty, and it's time for the new guard to take over. There's your part number if you have. Mine's a 97 2500. That'll cover right there, 392-4435. All the trucks, all the 12 valve second gen Rams from 94 to 98. It's held on by 4 15mm bolts. They're a really stout, fine thread flange bolt. Cummins says you can reuse them. The only way I would think about new ones would be if you're running high horsepower, in which case you probably are getting a fluid damper, or you feel yours were over torqued. I looked at the torque of mine coming off, and they were right at 92 foot-pounds. I measured them as they came off. So mine were not over torqued, and therefore I'm going to reuse them. I'm using thread locker, of course, just to be sure. I've got my torque wrench set for the correct torque. A little shorty. There's my 15mm socket. That'll help me to run them in and get them hand snug tight before I torque them down. You're going to need a cheater bar and a regular 3/8 ratchet to reinstall your serpentine belt. And you'll notice too the damage on the inside edge of the belt. It ripped off. It's supposed to be an 8-rib belt. There's only 7. That's the remains of a rib there. That's where my chirp was coming from. What was happening is, as this was going cattywampus, and by the way too, not very visible when the truck is engine off. Only visible when the engine is spinning, because then this distorts as these two parts come out of alignment. And it was pushing, the side that was in was pushing the belt right against the block. There's a sharp edge on the engine block and maybe only 2 or 3 millimeters clearance. Well, that was deflecting more than 2 or 3 millimeters and pushing the belt and ripping off the inner edge, and that was my chirp. So if you have a real difficult to find chirp, be aware. Go check your damper out. Matter of fact, after watching this, just climb under the truck or climb up top and look down. Very careful for your rotating and moving parts and fan blades and all that, but just look straight down. And your damper, your new one, your one that's in fine shape, will run perfectly straight and true, and there will be no wavering at all, just like the crankshaft and the internals on your engine. But this one here was wobbling like crazy, so let's avoid that. Now, what's the gunk and the towels for? The front of your engine's anything like mine, it's going to need some cleanup before you throw the belt on or before you change that out. I cleaned this up so it would look presentable, and we could tell you know, what it was like in terms of the degradation. But it was covered with grease. It was really pretty. And I've cleaned the front of my engine, but just 22 years of tiny leaks here and there, and it needs some help. So now beware too, when these give way, I did read some guys on the forums had said that their damper fell apart as they were driving. And what happens, sad to say sometimes, I hope it's not happened for any of you or many of you, but this portion, the hub portion, stays bolted to your crankshaft, and this part lets loose, and the belt can whip it, literally whip it into the other parts of your engine and go right through the radiator or take out your other front engine bay parts, including the timing cover. So that's why it's important to check this. And I'm just showing this as a friendly kind of a how-to and a warning. I feel bad because I'm pretty up on the condition of my truck, and I just hadn't looked at it much. And there she is. So let's go get going on the install. Okay, there's the front of the crankshaft. The engine's cleaned about as well as I can get it and the time I have to work. I've actually washed the engine with the gunk and the hose, and then I blew with compressed air the holes that the 4 bolts go into. Okay, just to make sure that that the thread locker gets a good purchase on those threads in there. Make sure there's no residual water from any cleaning or washing efforts you've done. I've got a couple of the bolts buttered up, so I'm not going to bore you with that. I'm just going to lift it up there. Notice there's a snout in the middle of the crankshaft. That helps you in installing and aligning, because basically this thing is too heavy to hold by hand. If that wasn't there, you'd never get those bolts aligned. But the center of this will hang on that snout, and then you can rotate it till you get a bolt hole and you're good to go. So that's kind of a neat design. All right, we'll show you more in a moment. Alrighty, all 4 bolts are in. Thread locker on them, just hand tight with the stubby wrench. Looks good on there. Yeah, it looks promising and exciting. One thing, you'll need to hold your engine still in order to torque. That's true when taking the bolts off and, of course, putting it back on again. So it's a different procedure. If you're a manual truck like this, set your parking brake, put it in 4th gear. And then that stability of the drivetrain should resist your torque, no problem. Mine didn't move at all. On automatic trucks, it's a little harder. You got to pull the inspection cover and then grab your flex plate with a locking vice grips and wedge it against the edge of the bell housing. I don't know that. I just know that by reading what the guys online have said who have automatic trucks. But you need to keep the engine still to get the torque right on those bolts. So I'm going to set the camera down here, and I've got my clicker torque wrench, and we'll get them snugged up, and then we'll put the belt on, and we'll start this bad boy up. There is just barely enough clearance between the fan shroud behind it to get to the bolts with the torque wrench. That's my standard clicker torque wrench like they sell everywhere, with a super stubby, maybe about a 1.5 or 2 inch extension, really short, and then a kind of a medium depth 15 millimeter socket. So you can see you can barely fit it in there. I've got the steering stabilizer brace, and I'm barely clearing it. But you should have no problem unless you've got any accessories that are in the way. Hopefully not. Alrighty, she's on and torqued down. That was a bit of an exertion. Just kind of an awkward spot to be having to yank almost 100 foot-pounds of torque on something. But yeah, so cool deal. Let me get that serpentine belt and we'll get her whipped on there. Alrighty, here we go. Belt's back on. A couple tips here that ought to help y'all. You've got a spot on the tensioner where your 3/8 ratchet fits in. It's right down there, and your ratchet fits in there to help you move the tensioner like you see me doing here in order to fit the belt on. Okay, and it's a bit of a job to get over all the pulleys correctly and under the water pump and over the alternator and so on and so forth. A helper down below is helpful when you're working on top if you can. My hat's off to you if you can do this all by yourself. And here's a routing guide. It's on my truck. If yours doesn't have this routing guide, you might want to freeze frame that if somehow yours is worn off or been taken off in a paint job or something. But that belt routing, mine is a truck on the left, the AC truck. The one with no AC is the one on the right, obviously. You can always pause the video and then save that picture in case yours is missing. Alrighty? Well, we're about ready to hit go here and start this bad boy up and go hook up to our load because we got a big load to tow tomorrow. Okay, pedal out. Sorry for that. Proof's in the pudding. There's your harmonic vibration dampener spinning perfectly true. Looking at it down there. See, there it is, that little disc thing down there through the radiator hose, past the pulleys. I'll get it shot from beneath as well. Moving straight and true. Alrighty, there we go. Straight and true. Just the way God and Cummins intended it to. Alrighty, time for the hook and put up low. Thanks for watching, guys. Check your pulley. Check your bamper. Bye. Alrighty, hey, thanks for watching about our harmonic vibration dampener failure and fix. This has been a lot of fun to do. The truck's running great, ready to haul our load. Going to haul about, I don't know, 20,000 pounds gross tomorrow as we help our relatives move up in Dallas. So, hey, be sure to hit the More button beneath to see links for and part numbers, any information. There's something I'll probably forget that I researched and should be said, and I'll put it in there for sure. And if you guys have had this happen to your truck, and whether you've caught it in time or it was a failure and the thing flew apart and did some damage, leave a comment below, okay? It'd be great to hear from you. And I'd also like to say, quick little commercial, check out our other video, okay? We offer the rock solid Ram truck steering fix, and it'll help your Dodge steer better. It works for all 2nd gen and 1st gen Rams, and it's got the, ours is the upgrade that remedies the worn lower column bearing. Dodge made kind of a weak lower column bearing, and it goes loose on you, and if you've replaced all your front end parts and you're like, why is it still loose? Why does my truck still have wander and play? Well, check out our website. I'll leave a link in the description as well. And on that information button up there, it should, I'll put our website as well. You see our other video, basically. And we've helped many thousands of Ram trucks to steer better. So we're happy to tell you more about that. If you need better steering your Dodge Ram, please check us out and be in touch, and we'll help you out gladly. And doesn't work for the 3rd gen trucks and later, but they seem to have different issues on steering. But 1st gen and 2nd gen, we got you covered all the way up to 02. Thanks a lot, guys. God bless. Drive safe. Thanks for tuning in.